for Nonviolence. This time, we're going to talk about the advocacy program, and we have a special guest, Dr. Sandra Joireman. And we're going back to 2002, where we had a pandemic with HIV and AIDS. In fact, anyone who had AIDS, it was considered a death sentence. So at that time, both Wheaton College and the Wheaton Franciscan Sisters worked together to really help pass legislation. The USA Leadership Act Against AIDS, Malaria, and TB. And the purpose was to provide medications, to deal with education, to deal with ways that have impacted the spread of HIV/AIDS locally and globally. And we established a group called the DGAAN, which was the DuPage Global AIDS Action Network. And this successful advocacy was really co-chaired by representatives from Wheaton College and the Wheaton Franciscan Sisters. And that's why this historical time is still significant. And now I'd like to bring in the conversation Dr. Sandra Joireman, who was a vital member of this team that helped move forward the legislation and other ways to deal with the HIV/AIDS pandemic. So, Dr. Joireman, how did you get involved in this whole process?
Thanks, Sister Sheila. I appreciate being part of this, and I appreciate our history of engagement. I'm a political scientist, and I'm a comparativist, and I work on issues of property rights and forced displacement. In the early 2000s, I was working on a project on land rights in Uganda, and I began to see the impact of HIV/AIDS on families and on communities. And I began to feel, really for the first time, that my research work was absolutely irrelevant. I mean, who cares about land rights when everybody in the family is dying? Because AIDS has a particularly malevolent way of clustering in families. You know, one person will get AIDS. If the mother gets AIDS, she'll pass it on to her children, or spouses will pass it on to each other. So that was really, I was seeing families die and whole communities die, and that had been bothering me and making me feel like my work wasn't very significant or wasn't important. And then Bono came to visit Wheaton College, where I was working at that time. And I saw the possibility of doing something about it. And Sister Sheila had the vision for DGAAN. And I was really open to doing any kind of activism around the issue. So that's what got me involved.
Well, then that got you there, but then how could you sustain your involvement? Because this took us a number of years to not only to initiate something, but to keep it going. So what did you kind of fall back on to keep you that enthusiastic?
It did take a long time. It took longer than any of us would have liked. But, I felt a strong calling to the work as a Christian, a person of faith. And I also felt a calling to the work as a person who's interested in international development. And so for me, I was working on the issue in two ways. I was working through DGAN, and then I was also working at Wheaton College. And in neither case, with neither organization, did I ever feel like I was on my own. I always felt like I was doing this as part of a group, and it was encouraging to work with others in that. And I also felt like the work at DGAN helped my work at the college and vice versa. So the two plugged me into different networks, and the two tracks of activism kind of mutually reinforced each other. That was one issue, but I was also really learning and growing through the work. I appreciated meeting people and engaging with people from other walks of life, other perspectives. And for me, maybe somewhat unusually, it also was helping me with my teaching and mentoring of students, because we had a huge cohort of students at Wheaton College who were very, very much engaged in the issue and wanted to do more. So it really helped me work with those students, mentor those students.
So Dr. Joireman, so when you reflect back on this experience, what would you say that you learned? What you can conceptualize because of that experience that's been very helpful you moving forward.
Oh, so many things, really so many things. But um, a few key issues. Like one, I learned about the benefit of sustained and civil interaction with lawmakers, even if they're not initially supportive of an issue, even if they're not on my team, right? Uh,
Mhm.
but just the benefit of having that relationship with them, of thinking about ways to thank them for other things that they might be doing, even if they're not doing the things that I want them to do, and that sustained relationship. So that's one thing. I would say the second thing I really learned is that you can work with people on a common cause even if you have nothing in common with them. I mean, I think about what we did back then, and we were a really diverse coalition of like rock stars, Midwestern students, vowed religious people, stay-at-home moms, professors, gay men, evangelical Protestants. We're all working together. So that was just really unusual, I think, but it worked. But the other thing that I learned, and maybe an enduring lesson for me, has really been that sometimes when you're working within your own sphere of influence in life, right, your own connections can have impacts that you would not imagine, right? I thought all of the important work that I was going to do on, international development was going to come from my field research. And in retrospect, I don't think that's true.
My, this is quite a understanding and many insights that you've gained in your personal life that you are now sharing with
Mhm.
us. It's certainly a benefit for all of us who are listening to what you have to say. So, if there anything else that you would like to share with us before we close this wonderful conversation?
Yeah, yeah, thanks for asking me that question. Because I actually think there are a lot of other things I would like to say. I'm going to say a few. One was, when I think back about my role at that time, I think I was personally most influential in this weird kind of interpretive way. Like I could explain to the college president, who was initially not interested in this issue or in any kind of political engagement, you know, why it was possible for the college to get involved, or how it was possible for the college to get involved, why it was Christian and biblical to do so, how it was consistent with our mission as an institution. So I was in this place where I could explain these things to people, and I could also do that with the students. This is why this is an important issue for you as a Christian, for you as someone who cares about development or whatever it might be. And I'll give you an example. That student group at one point what had opted not to work with a particular Christian organization that only wanted to portray HIV/AIDS as affecting like African women and children. They didn't want to talk about its impact on men, its impact on HIV/AIDS in other contexts. And to me, that just seemed both intellectually insupportable and also theologically incorrect. So it might have helped that organization to raise money, but I had lots of concerns about that, and so did the students. And I was able to talk that through with them and help them think about the different issues to consider. And ultimately, they were able to find more common ground with a secular organization that just wanted to combat HIV/AIDS everywhere in everyone. So that was kind of an example of, I think, how I played that interpretive role. I
Mhm.
would, another thing I wanted to just mention was, in preparation for this, you sent me a couple of questions, but you did not ask me, what was hard about this work. And I want to talk about that because I think when you think about advocacy, there are hard pieces of it, but those are often learning pieces. For me, it was very hard for me at first to operate outside of my comfort zone. There, there were multiple occasions in the work where I was thinking, oh my goodness, I hope this is the right decision. I hope this is not going to come back at me in some kind of negative way. And there was risk to me because I was employed at a very conservative institution, and I was explicitly trying to engage that institution and the students at a time when HIV/AIDS was not a signature evangelical issue, right? Quite far from it. And so there were a number of times when I remember thinking, oh, I hope I have a job next year. So that was one issue. And for me, the other thing was, there really was, for me personally, a cost to what I was doing because I there was an opportunity cost to me in spending so much of my time on advocacies. I wasn't writing papers. I wasn't presenting at conferences. I was doing this other thing. So what might my career have been if I spent more time focused on political science and not political advocacy? I don't know. I don't know. But I would also say it has left me, our work on HIV/AIDS left me with an enduring sense of possibility and hope, and openness to the movement of God in the world in seemingly intractable situations. And that has stayed with me. Sister Sheila, because you were there at the beginning of this work, it just looked hopeless. It was such a tall mountain to climb. But that idea, that sense of possibility has really stayed with me. But my experience working on HIV/AIDS has given me a kind of different posture in response to situations of great political difficulty. I think and I pray about what God would have me do in this time. And I don't know where the possibilities lie. I don't know. But I'm open to the movement of the Spirit of God in this world, and I'm ready to act within my sphere of influence in ways that are consistent with my faith.
Thank you, Dr. Joireman, for so carefully sharing your faith, where it's leading you, where you are open to wherever you feel God is calling you, and in whatever arena people are asking you to come forth. And we know with the dismissal of the U.S. aid funding, and PEPFAR being one of those, that that is where the medications and assistance was with the HIV/AIDS support. So at this time, it is something that we need to consider and find a way to move it forward that's in a hopeful way, or in a way that we can engage others as to the importance of this work. It's still continuing to be a front burner area to address. So again, thank you again for sharing, yourself and all your ongoing work to make this world certainly a better place. God bless you, Sandra.
Thanks, Sister Sheila. I appreciate the opportunity and always happy to work with you.
Okay.